Loki, Season 2. Yep. No superhero shirt today. It's laundry day. But Loki, Season 2. You expect the seasons, the second season, the opening show to be, to give you a little taste of what's going to happen. To be a little slow. A slow burn, if you will. But there was a lot of action in this episode. I was surprised by that. Loki, it starts moments after the end of season 1. I mean, just like moments. Loki shows up. He's talking to Mobius. He's like, hey, man, we got to stop him. And Mobius is like, who? Who are you? You know, he's with Hunter B-15. You know, black chick with the pruning stick. She zaps you and you disappear from time. They're standing there and they're like, who are you? He's like, I'm Loki. What do you mean? And he doesn't get it. We find out later that he's been bouncing through time. Boop, boop, boop. There was a game a long time ago where you had a stick on this side, a stick on this side. You bounced the ball between them. You went up and down. You bounced the ball. That's what he's doing. He's bouncing. Boop. Forward in time. Boop. Back in time. Boop. Forward in time. Boop. Back in time. He's going back and forth. And it's tearing him apart. He doesn't see it, of course, because it's him. He can't look at himself as he's disappearing. But Mobius tells him it's horrible. It's horrible to look at. It looks like he's being like shredded. If you've seen the previews, you've seen it. But he's being torn apart and then reassembled in time, backwards and forwards. So that was interesting. He can't really explain who he is, and I don't know why they don't know who he is, because they're Mobius's main thing and Hunter B-15's main thing is to chase variants of Loki. They've been chasing Sylvie for years. So it seems like another variant of Loki would pop up. They'd be like, oh, it's another Loki. And they would have just pruned him. But they don't know him. So it looks like he has landed in a time before they were given their primary mission, which I thought was kind of interesting. The second thing, he bounces back to the normal time that he had come from. And when he's there, he's like, where's Mobius? And they tell him. He goes to confront Mobius and let him know what's going on. Nobody wants to listen to him. They want to zap him. And he shows them in dramatic fashion, hey man, Kang is coming. It was sort of like when the Hulk crash landed in Doctor Strange's science place in the Sanctum Sanctorum. He crash landed here and he's like, Thanos is coming. Thanos is coming. And they're like, who? Same kind of a thing. He comes in and he's like, Kang is coming. And they're like, who? And he smashes the wall that had the three, like he says, the three lizards that was controlling time. And it shows a picture of Kang. So they theorized that Kang had conquered the world, or time. And then he needed to have these agents doing these things for him. He didn't want to give them an idea of what was actually going on. So everything's a facade. It's turning into an action / mystery, which is kind of good. They go down to the basement and they meet a guy named OB. And all of these guys are being given names that refer to different time instances. Mobius, OB, so Miss Minutes. So they all go down to the basement. Mobius takes them to the basement. He's like, you're scattering all over the place. We got to fix that first. They go down to the basement. They meet OB. OB tells Mobius he's met him like 400 years ago. Mobius doesn't remember it. And then they figure out that, hey, well, maybe Kang wiped your memory. And it's probably, he who he remains has been continually wiping memories to take stuff away from you so he can keep, his thing going. And really, I can't really say that he's the villain. I mean, he is the villain. But I can't really call him a villain because what he's doing is he's keeping, basically, he calls it the sacred timeline. He's keeping his timeline alive. And, fortunately for me, his timeline will probably be my timeline. He's keeping me alive. Cool. Because if the other Kangs had their way, they would want their timelines to be the predominant one, and they would erase his and, try to make theirs the number one timeline. So we're going to get to Kang War. We got to get to Kang War. They've already announced it. We're going to have the Kang War where he's going to battle against all the other variants of himself. Okay, let's get an idea of what the variants are. So you're living your life, right, man, in a dimension right next to yours. There's another you. Slightly different because somewhere along the line, someone has made a different decision that's affected you. Like say your parents were supposed to go on a date. That date led to them creating you. They get married or they don't get married or whatever, but you're created. In another timeline, your parents are supposed to go on a date. But instead of going on that date, your father trips, hurts his ankle, doesn't go. Your mom runs out of gas. She can't make it, doesn't go. Your dad, his ex-girlfriend calls him and he decides he wants to hang out with her instead. He doesn't go. Now you're not created. That one thing means you're not there. So after that, your children aren't there. All the people that you would have in your lifetime talk to, you don't. Maybe you give Billy some great advice that makes him not do a terrible thing, like rob a bank. Without you there, he's robbing that bank. Things change. In your lifetime, you date a girl, you guys end up at the movies. On that exact same night, you don't meet that girl. She doesn't go to that movie. She ends up getting attacked by a werewolf or whatever. Who knows? One small change ripples through time and changes a multitude of things. So there's you. There's you that has been changed slightly because of whatever, or maybe greatly. Maybe the other you is part lizard, because lizard people rule that planet. Who knows? But there's difference. But there are variants. There's differences of you. Every time from the main time stream, something goes astray just a little bit, it creates an entirely different timeline, past and present. So I do something I'm not supposed to do now. It not only changes the present, it changes the past too. This timeline is now different. Every time that happens, there's a brand new timeline. So there are thousands of Kangs. Some timelines he didn't exist, but in most of them he did. So there's thousands of Kangs, thousands of He Who Remains. And they've become aware of one another and they want to fight for supremacy. They're like, hey man, my universe won't exist if yours continues to. I gotta get rid of your universe, your entire timeline. So they fight for dominance to see who is the one timeline that will remain. And in Loki, we see He Who Remains. He was the one who won the original Kang War. And in order to keep everything straight, to keep everything good, he has to make sure that nothing deviates from what he believes is the specific timeline. So if I'm supposed to go to the movies tonight and I don't go, he's going to fix that. I'm going to the movies. You ever say to yourself, I think I want to do this thing. I don't want to do it. That was probably Kang changing your mind. That's how it exists. He controls the timeline, makes everything work a certain way. Thanos, he knew about him. He didn't care about him. It was supposed to happen. He allowed it. Things like that happened. The Avengers, he allowed it. Actually, when they started bouncing through time, that's when they really got his attention, and he focused in on them, because now they are becoming aware of the ability to travel through time and manipulate time. That's his shtick. He don't want anybody doing that, man. It's like a dude that spent, a year making his grass just right, and he's like 68 years old, and he cuts his grass every day, and he puts that stuff on it, that dirt stuff on the grass, and he cuts it and waters it. He's got the sprinklers on timers. And then some kid decides that they're going to play in his grass, and he comes out waving his finger and saying, "Get off my lawn." That's Kang. Except his lawn is all of time. When somebody does something, he's like, "Get off my lawn." And he prunes them. He removes them from time. Because they're not supposed to be doing whatever it is they're doing. So not only, he's the greatest of all conquerors. He didn't conquer Asia. He didn't conquer Europe. He didn't conquer 75% of the world. He didn't conquer, a specific area of universe. He conquered everything that exists this exact moment. Everything that exists an hour from now. Everything that exists a year from now. 30 years ago. He controls all of it. And he sits there and monitors it. And if there's an error, he corrects it. Loki seems to be getting pushed out of that time. To be completely honest, I saw this theory on Screen Crush, and they had a great theory. The wristbands that they wore in Spider-Man keeps these people from bouncing, from different timelines and glitching. They were like, they were glitching. He's glitching in here. He doesn't have that wristband that they had in the Spider-Verse. Kang was wearing a wristband very similar. Tony Stark and Iron Man, when he created the time loop so they can go back and forth and do their time heist, he had on a very similar wristband. Now, my personal theory is that in the comics, Dr. Doom / Reed Richards, both of them say they did it first, creates a time traveling device. Through the centuries, different people have perfected it and used it or outlawed it. Here, I think Tony Stark creates that wristband, and then later, to keep everybody from glitching and tearing themselves apart, he figured it out first. Later, in Spider-Verse, they're using it to travel through time, and they're basically pruning stuff too. They're doing time variant things. And then later, the Kang in the future, who is supposed to be a descendant of both Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, he has that wristband. And he's using it so he doesn't glitch. Loki doesn't have that wristband. And he's, for whatever reason, bouncing back and forth. And every time, he's glitching. Just like Spider-Man, Spider-Verse. It's connected. It's all connected. That's why I like Marvel movies, because somebody sits down and connects all of these pieces, even the small pieces. Now there's holes. Of course there's holes, but they connect a lot of it. Loki is a mystery wrapped in an enigma, surrounded by a puzzle. I like this show, man. I like Owen Wilson as an actor. I like him as Mobius. Miss Minutes is probably evil, and she basically controls the time variant, the time, That dude's in trouble, man. Loki's in a lot of trouble. I wonder how he's gonna get out of it. I can't wait for the next episode and then the one after that, because I gotta get an idea of what's going on. There's so much that happened in this episode, with Loki needing to prune himself. Man, you gotta yank yourself out of the timeline. That sucks. I don't think I would do that. It's like shooting yourself in the face and someone saying, "Do it. It's okay. You'll come back." Why would I trust that? So There's so many things happening here. I like the fact that the character that plays OB, I'm going to say this wrong, Ki Hu Kwan, was also just in Everything Everywhere All at Once, another time variant multiverse type show. And now he's doing it again. Maybe he's got his niche. Maybe this is his thing, man. Sci-fi type time travel things. He's good at it. I enjoyed his character. He was quirky and interesting. How are they gonna get past Miss Minutes, man? I don't know. But this first episode of Loki, not looking at the last season, just this first episode. Last season I thought was good. This first episode of Loki, so much more I want to say about it. I would give this first episode 8 bags of popcorn, because it started off a lot more intense than I thought it would be. There are people there's some of the hunters that are starting to turn against one another. They're picking a side, either Kang or Mobius. They're picking sides, man. Mobius / Loki. Who pruned Loki? He was thinking about it, but he didn't do it. Somebody zapped him from behind. The reason I know that he didn't just stick himself was because you saw his hands and he was getting zapped. Who did that? I don't know. It's interesting. But that's what I think. More importantly, what do you think? Now you had a chance to click the video. Let's talk about it in the comments. And as always, if you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe. And then like.
Popcorn passport.